I will be doing a data optimization PowerPoint presentation for Summon today. My name is Heidi Thompson. I work for the Ex Libris customer success team. And I'm going to go ahead and get started. Actually, before I start, I just want to let you guys know, if you have any questions throughout the presentation, if you feel very motivated, you might be able to speak them out loud or raise your hand. But you can also submit them in chat. I'm thinking this session will probably be right around 30, 35, 45 minutes, something like that, depending on how quickly I speak. I'm going to try to slow it down. I have a tendency to go a little fast, so we're going to see what happens. All right, so today we're going to be doing an introduction of me and also an introduction of the customer success team, very short. Then we're going to talk a little bit about when and why you might want to optimize your data for your summon service, for your discovery service. We're going to do some getting started work, and we're going to analyze our collections, review authentication settings, review accounts, review library settings, and then finally we're going to do some Summon admin console review as well. And all of the slides will be made available to you. They will have links in them on in order to get to different areas of our Knowledge Center documentation, so you can get some further background information. And then at the very end of this presentation is a slide that includes my email address. So if you don't already have it, you can reach out to me. And I actually should have included our just general customer success email address. I'll do that also in the PowerPoint presentation that gets sent out to you. All right, so let's go ahead and get started. Again, my name is Heidi Thompson. I graduated in 2008 from the University of Washington's iSchool. I have been working here at Serial Solutions, ProQuest, Ex Libris, Claravit for almost 13 years. I will celebrate 13 years mid-August. I got the job here right out of library school. While I've worked here, I have been a technical support analyst, a product manager, and now I'm a customer success manager, which means I get to work directly with customers. I live in Tacoma, Washington. I was born in the Pacific Northwest, so I've been to other places, but I do love the Pacific Northwest, and so that's where I decided to settle down and start a family. I have an almost 3-year-old son, Quinn, who is there in my arms. This picture was taken last year during the pandemic. There was a local photographer who was going around doing porch pictures. So this is a picture of me and my husband at home on our porch. And I also have 2 cats and a dog. And my cats are interesting because they are munchkins, which means they have very short legs. They're like the corgi version of a cat. How can the customer success team help you? We do things like configuration reviews, which is sort of similar to what we're doing right now, except it takes a really focused deep dive look at your summon service, both internally and also on your website. We post and send out monthly featurettes, which is basically a distilled list of product and best practice recommendations for you delivered directly to your inbox. We also do a lot of information sharing, which includes walkthroughs, training sessions, overviews, discussions of the roadmap, things like that. We have the ability to connect you to other experts internally. So if there's something that I can't help you with, I know usually who to connect you with in order to get the information that you're looking for, and I'm happy to do that for you. And then in general, just sort of listening and lending a hand. I like to describe the function of the customer success team as being sort of like your concierge service for the software that you're subscribed to through Ex Libris. I also like to say that the support team is there to handle problems that you might be having, and the customer success team is here to handle any feelings you might be having about your services. So if you feel like things aren't working like how you expect them to, or if you feel like you're not getting the answers that you're looking for, you can always reach out to the customer success team for additional help. So then moving right along to when and why to optimize your data. If it's been a long time since you implemented or since you've taken a really deep and holistic view of your data in Summon, that might be a good time to optimize your data. If there's been a big change in your organization, your website's changed, your administration has changed, something like that, you may want to go ahead and take a deep dive into your data. If there's been a lot of reports of issues related to linking, or if you just have general questions about what's included in your summon service, you may want to do a data optimization. And then always is just there for you to help ensure that you're giving the best experience to your users. So we're going to go ahead and get started. So again, like I said, I'm going to kind of flip back and forth between the live environment, and I'm going to be using a demo profile, which basically means that the data that I'm accessing is stuff that the sales team has sort of thrown together in order to provide a good experience for folks when they're doing demos, when they're visiting customers. So it's not exactly an exact live experience, but it will be similar enough. So the very first thing that you're going to do, or that I suggest that you do when you start doing a data optimization, is to request and download a database details report from the management reports section of the Client Center. And then let's just go ahead and do that. So under management reports, you're going to go ahead and ask for a database details report, and then request the report. And then basically this just takes a little while to load. I loaded it yesterday, so I'm going to go ahead and pull up the report that I loaded yesterday. And again, this is going to be very tiny, and I apologize. But this is a rather large report of all of the databases that are contained within this particular profile. The very first column, we have the database code, then we have the default database name, if there are any custom database names that have been added, the provider code and the provider name, the number of different types of holdings, the total number of holdings, what the status of the particular database is. All of that type of information is included in this report. And what you're going to be looking for is you're going to pay very, very close attention to the databases that are included, the database names that are included here. And you're going to make sure that all of the databases that are included in this report are databases that you're still subscribed to. And if you're not subscribed to those databases anymore, you're either going to go into the Client Center and mark them, or in TOTA, or whatever profile you might be using, and mark them not tracked. Or if for some reason you need to keep them in your profile, say for instance you have cost data associated with them, or you need to preserve any types of historic counter reports and things like that, what you can do in those cases is you can change the status of the database from subscribed to a different status, any other status, except for not tracked. Marking a database not tracked literally removes it from your profile, so it's not in your collection anymore. But what you can do instead is change the display in settings from yes to no. And what that means is you're going to go into your Client Center profile under data management, click on the database, edit, and then uncheck the display in boxes. And that removes the content from this database from flowing out to your downstream, to your patron services. It keeps it in your profile for, resource management purposes and for just general knowledge purposes, but it will remove it from displaying in any of your downstream services. Okay, I'm going to go back to this. The next thing that you're going to look at is you're going to see whether or not all of your display in boxes are checked or unchecked appropriately. Next, you're going to make sure whether or not you are, omitting the proxy from the databases that are open access. I would suggest omitting the proxy from databases that are open access so that you don't require your users to log in order to access free content. The next thing you're going to check is to see whether or not the databases that are checked, we subscribe to only some of the databases or some of the titles in this database. So it's the title coverage option. We subscribe to only some of the titles in this database. For the cases where you subscribe to only some of the titles in the database, you're going to make sure that the number of titles matches the number of titles that you're subscribed to, or is very close to the number of titles that you're subscribed to. If it's not, you're going to need to then look at that database more closely and see if there are any titles that need to be added or removed from that collection that you don't have access to. Next, you're going to check the database description fields, which are these fields on the outside here. The database descriptions, especially the ones, the Serial Solutions descriptions that are listed here, which should actually say Ex Libris descriptions, but it's an artifact. Those are the descriptions that we have for these particular databases. We find that they are helpful these are the descriptions that flow out to the database recommender. If you have a particular one that you would like to use instead, you can add a database description. This is a test for products, is the one that's been added here. And then that would be the prevailing description that would be used in your database recommender in Summon. So yes, the very first thing that you're going to do is make sure that the databases that you have in this report are correct. The other thing that you're going to want to pay attention to is any databases that might be missing from this report. If you've added any databases since the last time that you performed a data optimization, or since you implemented Summon, or it's been a while since you've checked your databases, you'll want to make sure that the database list is accurate. Having an accurate list of databases included in your profile is that is the way that your users access the content that you're subscribed to in your discovery services and in your other downstream services as well. So in the case particularly of a lot of broken links, in those cases, it could be that the databases included in your profile are ones that you're no longer subscribed to, and your users are being prompted to log into content that you don't actually have access to. Okay, so the next thing that we're going to do is we're going to review the authentication settings, and there is a helpful support center answer, knowledge center answer. Okay, so we have a list of the different providers that we know require some sort of configuration in the Client Center or in TOTA. And so what you'll do is you'll check this list of providers and make sure that if you have any of the providers on this list, that you perform any of the update tasks that are requested. So just as an example, I'm going to go ahead and look at one, a provider that I know requires authentication. And that would be Gale. And I'll just show you some of the things that I do when I evaluate a customer's collection. So one of the very first things that I do is for databases that have titles in them, I will go into the actual database and make sure that there is a custom URL entered that includes a location ID. So you can see in the default URL, there's this location ID section that has been updated in the custom URL to include the location ID. And then in addition, the loc ID also needs to be added underneath authentication settings. So when you click edit, you can go ahead and enter in your location ID. The loc ID is from Gale, so it's not something that we provide. It's something that you would need to get from Gale that you would then enter in, under loc ID. The very next thing that you need to do is, I'm just going to bump it back to the list, is you need to actually take a look at the preview URLs. So this column that has this icon in it, this actually shows the first 25 URLs for a particular database. And you can see here that there is no location ID entered for these titles. Now, there are hundreds of titles in this database, and there are other databases that have thousands of titles in them. You want to make sure that you're not actually going in and manually updating these URLs yourself, because that's a lot of work. And then that would be something that you would have to maintain over time as titles were added to this database potentially. That's not work that you need to be doing. Instead, what you'll need to do is open a ticket with a support team, provide them the name of the database, and if you think of it, if you could also provide the database code, and then just let them know what your loc ID is and you'd like for your title level links to be updated. We have a way of updating the URLs on our backend so that they are always going to be adding the loc ID to those titles. That way you don't have to do it. All right, let's go back to our presentation. The next thing that we're going to do is review the accounts that are available in this particular profile. So we're going to go back to home, and we're going to go ahead and click on Client Center Accounts. And then what you'll do is you'll just look at the accounts that have been entered here and, sort of decide perhaps, Jane Peters does not actually need to be in this particular account since they've never logged in before. So in general, you can kind of just come in and do some cleanup in your account area. We advise that you not include accounts that have been, for folks who have left, just because it's, it opens you up to a potential security issue. So you may want to come in and delete accounts. If you accidentally click the red X and delete an account that you didn't mean to delete, don't worry. That just removes the account from your profile. It doesn't remove the account entirely. However, if you try to re-add the account with the same email address that was included in the original account, it will tell you that there's a duplicate in the system and it can't add the account. So in the cases where you accidentally delete an account, what you'll want to do is chat us or send us a request through the support center, letting us know that you've accidentally removed someone's account, and then we can go back in and re-add them to your account. So not all is not lost, never fear. Next, we're going to go ahead and take a look at library settings. Here, let me just come back to my presentation. We're going to go ahead and review library settings. And so we're going to take a look at, first we're going to look at your library URLs. And usually this is filled out more than it is here. In particular, you're going to make sure that the authentication type and the proxy URL are accurate. That is the information that we use across your account in order to authenticate your users. So we do add that authentication information to all of the URLs that are outbound from your different Ex Libris services. And the next thing that you're going to want to double check is that your IPs are all accurate and that the list here is inclusive of all the IPs that are in your account. If there is an IP range that is missing, what will happen is if users try to access from that IP range, so if a user tries to access from outside the list of IP ranges that are included here, they may not see all of the content that you have access to in Summon, because there is protected content that we do have in our central discovery index. So things like law resources or some ANI resources don't appear in Summon results unless the user is authenticated or recognized as coming from inside the IP ranges that are listed here. Okay, what's next? Sorry. All right. Next, we're going to go ahead and go into the Summon Administration Console and take a look at a few things there. And it'll just take a second for this to load. The danger with doing live demos always is just how long will it take my internet service to actually open the different web pages? Okay. So here you're going to check to make sure that the URLs that are listed here are accurate. Your home link is the link that actually is used in the Summon service. So it is the link that actually is behind this, the icon that's in the corner of your Summon service. And then also, if you're using the feedback form, make sure that the email address is accurate and is for a person who actually works at your institution. Next, you're going to check the library chat settings to make sure that they are set up correctly. And of course, now I'm not chat, right. So you'll make sure that all of this information is set up correctly. And I have a link in the PowerPoint presentation that goes out to how to configure your chat service. And then finally, you're going to go ahead and check your best bets and your custom panels. And so when you when you click on the recommender, that's where your best bets are located, is under the recommender feature. So the database recommender and best bets are located in the same place. So you're going to click on best bets. And then just take a look at the ones that are listed. And if there are any that don't need to be included anymore, you can remove them. Or I think if you remove all of the tags, actually the title would still pull it up. But if you remove all the tags, that is a good way of limiting how often the best bet would come up. But your best bet is going to be to actually remove it. And then for your custom panels, you can go ahead and find those under pages and then custom panel sections. And then here you can actually disable these if you need to. And so just as a reminder, best bets are going to be located, oh, I should have said hours. Let's try that again. Best bets are going to be located at the top of the results set here. So this is a best bet right here. And then your custom panels are going to be the ones that appear over here on the right-hand side. So you can see here we have the COVID-19 updates and the remote access help. These are the two custom panels that have been added in this profile. And then the library hours is the best bet that's been added in this profile. So for best bets, in order to remove them, you actually have to remove them completely. But for your custom panels, you can disable them during periods of time when they're not needed. And I think that actually kind of wraps up. Oh, no, sorry. Continued content ingestion. So the next thing that you should take a look at is content ingestion. Make sure that if you have any, if you are all of the people who are subscribed to the content ingestion report, which again, the content ingestion report shows, gives you weekly updates on when content is ingested into the Summon Index. So like your libguides, your library catalog, and then provider information for the providers that you're subscribed to when that data is updated. But what you should really take a look at is the new full load notification area. And you should double check to see when the last time was that you submitted a new full load if you're submitting catalog records to us. When was the last time that you submitted a full set of those catalog records to us? We recommend that you submit full sets of records to us quarterly or twice a year or somewhat frequently, I guess is what I would say. The last time this was submitted was in 2018, so I would say that for, if this was an actual customer, I would suggest that they load or that they send a full load of catalog records to us. When you submit a full load of catalog records via the FTP, you need to fill out this form also. And I'm sorry if you can hear my dog in the background. This notifies us that you have submitted a full load of records. It creates a case for us basically in our Jira, in our case logging system for the developers. And then they can shepherd that along through the process. And you'll get status updates as it moves along through the process. You can see this particular one was on hold. The other thing that I would recommend doing is actually going into the Client Center. Let's just go back to the Client Center and actually going into data management and taking a look at, let's look at OK State. Yeah, there we go. Taking a look at the sources that you have in your collection associated with your institution and making sure that this is a complete list of the databases that you would like to make available to your users. And then the other thing that I might do, since these will typically not have any titles listed in them, is I would take the database code. Let's just see if this works. And I would copy the database code or memorize it. Go into the libraries, go into your summon service, and then search for the DB ID. Yeah, so there aren't any results returned for this. There are a variety of reasons, one of which is probably the fact that I added these databases yesterday. When you add a database in the Client Center, it takes the next the next full CDI refresh for that actually to flow out to your summon service. So because I added this recently, it's not appearing. But I would use the database code and a DBID search for these zero title databases, and I would look for them and make sure that what comes up in the results set is accurate. And when I say what comes up, I mean both that it looks right and that also the number of results that are returned matches what you have in your service. If there's a big difference between what you're seeing in your discovery service in Summon and what you have in your repository or your catalog, that would be a reason to contact us and let us know that there is some sort of discrepancy happening. All right. And then finally, I would go in and I would look at all of the things that have been released for your different services recently, or even since the last time that you took a deep dive into this. So I've provided links out to the Summon 360 services and Entoda Assessment release pages in the Knowledge Center. So I'll just go into the Summon one and we can take a look at it. Okay, so you'll just click on Release Notes. And then once this loads, okay. And then you can see here, I'll just make this a little bit bigger so that it's easier to see, that we do list out the dates for all of the releases. And if you click on these, it'll take you directly to the release. So this one is from May. I mean, you can take a look at the things that have been released and you can go ahead and test those things out. And you can actually test those things out in your Summon instance. Let's just go back to Summon by going into the preview environment. So I just want to really quickly show you the preview environment for your Summon service, how you access the preview back end, and then also how you access the preview Summon user interface. So for the preview admin console, there's a link up here at the top of the page that says preview environment. When you click on that, it will take you into the preview environment. And you'll know it's the preview environment because instead of just this regular Summon editor, there's the red preview here. And then for your actual Summon service, the way that you access preview is by putting the word preview in between the name of your Summon service and the word Summon. So you can see here now that says preview is not a production site. This is a really great way for you to actually test out new features for your Summon service. I will say that we do write over any changes that have been made in the preview environment 2 weeks before each of our releases. We copy the live environment into the preview environment so that you have an opportunity to test the new features using all of your existing live environment customizations. I hope that everyone has a great rest of their week, and thank you very much for coming to this session.